If you really think about it, driving from New York to Florida in a gas-powered car is just, well, it's a race against the clock.
Oh, absolutely. The clock is your main enemy.
Right. Your entire goal is to shave off minutes, limit your pit stops, and just push your physical limits to devour highway miles.
Yeah, you're essentially just trying to endure it.
Exactly.
hmm
But if you execute that exact same route in an electric vehicle, your main enemy is, it's no longer the clock.
No, it shifts entirely.
Yeah, it becomes your own psychology. So today, we are opening the logs of a deep dive into a 1,000-plus mile sprint straight down Interstate 95.
Which is quite the journey.
It really is. We are tracking a trip from Long Island, New York, all the way down to a home base in Orlando, Florida, executed entirely in a white Tesla Model Y.
And, it's a route that fundamentally tests the viability of the current charging infrastructure.
Totally. I mean, the I-95 corridor is notoriously exhausting.
Right. It's one of the most heavily trafficked stretches of pavement in North America. Navigating it requires this structural shift in how a driver manages their time, their vehicle, and honestly, their own energy reserves.
So our mission for this deep dive is to bypass those tired, surface-level arguments about range anxiety that you always hear.
Yeah, we're going way past that.
We are digging into the source material to examine the really gritty physical preparation required for a run of this distance.
The physics and biology of it all.
Exactly, the stuff that dictates the cadence of the drive. And we're going to look at why being forced to add, like, 5 hours to your travel time might actually be the ultimate travel hack.
Which sounds counterintuitive, I know. But to understand that structural shift, we really have to start before the vehicle even leaves the driveway.
Right, the prep phase.
Yeah. A successful EV journey requires this hyper-awareness of the vehicle's specific vulnerabilities.
So what's the big one for the Model Y?
Well, on a 1,000-mile road trip, the most glaring mechanical vulnerability is just the complete absence of a spare tire.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because driving an EV without a spare tire is kind of like free climbing with a custom ultralight chalk bag.
That's a great way to put it.
You've stripped away the heavy traditional safety harness to maximize your aerodynamics and battery range.
Right, you're treating security for efficiency.
Exactly. But it means you have to be highly intentional about the exact tools you carry to get yourself out of a sudden pinch.
And the sources detail how the drivers handled this. They actually repurposed the Model Y's subtrunk.
Oh, that deep recessed cavity under the rear cargo floor.
Yeah, that exact spot. They turned it into this highly specialized pit crew kit. And the inventory in there is incredibly pragmatic.
They weren't just carrying like a generic roadside kit from a gas station, right?
No, not at all. They tacked a high-draw 12-volt tire inflator to continuously battle the slow leaks that you get from highway debris.
Which happens all the time on I-95.
Right. And alongside that, they included a heavy-duty tire plug kit specifically designed to handle rogue nails or screws.
And they also brought a custom tool roll. And we aren't just talking about, a pair of pliers and a screwdriver here.
No, they actually packed a hammer.
A literal hammer. I mean, when you are pushing a vehicle through multiple states, taking impacts from unpredictable road debris.
Things get bent.
Yeah, a hammer becomes a necessary utility.
Yeah.
Like, you might need to forcefully dislodge a rock caught behind a brake dust shield.
Or bend a piece of damaged undercarriage trim back into place so it stops scraping the asphalt.
It makes total sense.
It does. And by physically carrying that specific tool roll, the driver is actively bypassing the brain's default anxiety loop.
What do you mean by the default anxiety loop?
Well, when you remove a built-in safety net, like a spare tire, the human brain naturally generates this low-level ambient anxiety.
Sure, like a background hum of worry.
Exactly. It runs constant background calculations about potholes and construction zones.
Just waiting for something to go wrong?
Right, so the subtrunk kit isn't just a collection of metal and rubber. It acts as cognitive offloading. You are literally packing cognitive bandwidth.
Wow, packing bandwidth. I like that.
Yeah, because true peace of mind doesn't come from pretending a blowout won't happen. It comes from knowing you possess the exact mechanical countermeasures to neutralize the threat if it does.
So that physical preparation basically clears the mental slate. The driver isn't burning neurological energy worrying about a flat tire in, like, rural South Carolina.
Precisely.
But clearing that anxiety only clears the runway for the next major hurdle for you on a trip like this.
Which is confronting the actual passage of time.
Right. because a traditional gas-powered road trip relies on brute force efficiency. You pull up to a pump, refuel for 5 minutes, and immediately get back onto the highway.
It's a hyper-compressed, frantic transaction.
Totally frantic. But the logs from this Model Y journey document a radical departure from that pacing. The drivers had to adopt what they termed the EV mindset.
Which is a huge adjustment.
Huge. The mathematical reality of this mindset is that relying on the supercharger network added roughly 4 to 5 hours to their total transit time from New York to Florida.
Yeah, the vehicle literally dictated charging pauses lasting anywhere from 40 to 60 minutes at a time.
See, I have to pause and challenge this premise for you, the listener, because adding 5 hours to an already grueling multi-day transit sounds punishing.
It sounds like a lot, I know.
To a driver conditioned by gas station efficiency, an extra 5 hours in transit just sounds like dragging out the torture.
Yeah.
The sources claim this forced downtime is a blessing in disguise, but is that just an optimistic rationalization?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it actually makes perfect sense. To answer that, we have to look at the underlying physics of the vehicle's battery management system and then correlate that to human biology.
Okay, let's hear the physics first.
Well, a lithium-ion battery does not charge at a linear rate. When the battery is at a low state of charge, say 10%, electrons flow into the cells incredibly fast.
It's like a sponge soaking up water when it's totally dry.
Exactly. But as the battery fills up and approaches 80 or 90%, the vehicle software heavily throttles the electrical input to prevent thermal degradation.
So the charging curve tapers off dramatically.
Right. So getting the car from 10% to 60% might only take 15 minutes.
But pushing it to a full 100% demands an exponentially longer wait.
Precisely. The physics of the charging curve dictate a specific cadence of travel. You either make a high number of very brief stops, or you make fewer, significantly longer stops to achieve a deeper state of charge.
And the drivers on this trip opted for the longer 40 to 60-minute pauses, right?
They did, and this is where the biological advantage reveals itself. We need to analyze the physiological toll of road hypnosis.
The trance state.
Yeah, it's a very real, documented neurological phenomenon. When you drive for hours on end, the low-frequency hum of the tires against the asphalt really gets to you.
Plus the hyper-repetitive visual field of those dashed lane markers flying by.
Exactly. It literally alters your brainwave activity. Your brain drops from a beta state of active alertness into an alpha or even theta state.
Which means your reaction times just plummet.
They fall off a cliff, and to combat this drift in consciousness, your adrenal system spikes your cortisol levels, forcing your body to fight its own fatigue.
So you are essentially poisoning your own nervous system with stress hormones just to stay awake.
That's exactly what's happening, and the traditional gas station sprint doesn't fix that at all.
Because a 5-minute stop to pump fuel and run to the restroom isn't enough time for the body to process and clear those stress hormones.
It isn't even close. But a forced 45-minute pause acts as a hard physiological reset.
It gives the nervous system time to calm down.
Right. It provides sufficient time for the parasympathetic nervous system to re-engage. The driver walks around, restoring proper vascular circulation to the lower extremities.
And your eyes get a break.
Yeah, the ocular muscles relax because they are no longer tracking objects at 70 miles per hour. True efficiency isn't merely a mathematical calculation of time saved on a clock.
It's a measure of the quality of human energy remaining at the finish line.
Exactly. Arriving 5 hours earlier in a state of severe adrenal fatigue is just a false economy.
Okay, I see the logic, though. A 45-minute neurological reset only functions if your environment actually allows for recovery.
That is a very valid point.
I mean, sitting in a desolate, poorly lit parking lot, staring at a concrete wall for an hour, isn't going to lower anyone's cortisol levels.
No, it would probably raise them.
Right. The environment during that pause dictates the quality of the recovery.
Which introduces the whole routing strategy the drivers utilize to manage those longer charging blocks.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The sources outline this fascinating manipulation of the vehicle's navigation system.
Yeah, they didn't just blindly follow the screen.
Right. Rather than letting the Tesla software dictate the absolute most efficient, bare-bones route, the drivers actively modified their charging waypoints to align with experiential retail.
It was incredibly strategic.
Specifically, the journey became a heavily calculated Buc-ee's tour down the eastern seaboard.
Which highlights a major shift in the underlying economics of highway travel.
For some quick context for you, Buc-ee's is this massive convenience store chain known for vast square footage, pristine facilities, and just extensive food options.
It's basically a roadside oasis.
It really is. And the drivers align their supercharger stops with these specific locations. They planned a strategic stop in Virginia,
Then they routed through a location in South Carolina.
specifically to acquire freshly sliced brisket, which is amazing. They executed a major bio-break and supply run in Georgia, and they continued the pattern deep into Florida with stops in St. Augustine and Daytona Beach.
And the result of this routing strategy was highly visible within the cabin itself,
Oh yeah, the logs explicitly mention a growing mountain of Beaver Nuggets.
which are so good.
Those sweet corn puffs they sell there. Yeah, they were just accumulating in the center console of the Model Y.
But the key insight here is the temporal alignment.
The timing of it all.
Exactly. The 45 minutes required to push that lithium-ion battery through the slow end of its charging curve perfectly matches the time required to navigate a high-volume retail space.
Right, you need time to order a hot meal, browse the aisles, use the restroom, and walk back to the vehicle.
We're essentially witnessing the evolution of the road trip's liminal space. Historically, the transit corridor between point A and point B was viewed strictly as friction.
Yeah, the gas station was just a necessary, often unpleasant utility to facilitate movement.
But as electric vehicle infrastructure matures, we see networks intentionally anchoring themselves to these experiential retail hubs.
So the charging stop ceases to be a logistical penalty and transforms into a micro-destination.
Exactly. The traveler is no longer enduring the pause, they are actively participating in it.
It fundamentally rewrites the psychological script from, I am delayed by my vehicle, to I am utilizing this time for my own leisure.
Which is so much healthier.
But even with a steady supply of brisket and the luxury of a leisurely pace, the sheer geography of the East Coast eventually demands a toll.
Oh, definitely. You can't escape the miles.
Right. The transition from the highway into the final stretch of the journey triggers a severe psychological hurdle.
The logs document this phenomenon really clearly as the vehicle approaches the state line.
Because, think about it, you have been navigating the I-95 corridor for days. The physical fatigue is accumulating despite the strategic breaks.
And then the symbolic victory appears on the horizon.
The Welcome to Florida sign. The sources describe an immediate, powerful emotional high. The drivers roll down the windows, the climate shifts to that warm, humid air, and there's a profound sense of triumph.
The brain registers that the destination state has been breached.
But then the driver checks the navigation display,
Right.
and the screen reveals that they have barely crossed into Jacksonville.
Which is a huge reality check.
Yeah. And the routing to the home base in Orlando still requires roughly 3 hours of continuous driving. The state of Florida is geographically enormous.
It really is. And this realization induces what the drivers call the Florida fake-out.
So what does this all mean for the driver's psyche? How do you recover from that whiplash?
Well, this raises an important question about how we process progress. To understand the severity of the Florida fake-out, we have to analyze how the human brain relies heavily on symbolic milestones to distribute dopamine.
And dopamine is the neurotransmitter responsible for motivation and reward.
Right.
Exactly.
When a driver sees a heavily advertised, culturally significant border crossing, the brain interprets that symbolic marker as the conclusion of the objective.
It's like checking a huge box.
Right. It signals the nervous system that the effort phase is complete.
So the mind effectively unpacks its bags while the body is still strapped into the driver's seat.
It is a textbook psychological mismatch. The cognitive map completely conflicts with the geographical reality.
It's just brutal.
Think of it as a false summit in mountaineering. A climber exhausts their final reserves of mental and physical energy, pushing toward a ridge they believe to be the peak.
Only to crest the edge and discover the actual summit is still miles away at a higher elevation.
Exactly. The sudden, violent withdrawal of dopamine, combined with the sheer monotonous length of the Florida Peninsula, creates a profound wave of psychological
The
fatigue.
driver is no longer fighting the road. They are fighting the biochemical crash within their own brain.
Pushing through that biochemical crash is what makes the final segment of this deep dive so critical. The final 3 hours become a pure test of willpower.
Untethered from the initial excitement of the journey.
Right. The recovery relies entirely on the driver's ability to reset their mental horizon. They really must detach their sense of progress from the state border and re-anchor it to the localized milestones of the I-4 corridor leading into Orlando.
And when that mental horizon finally aligns with the physical destination, the payoff is uniquely potent.
Oh, the relief is massive.
The sources detailed the distinct satisfaction of pulling that white Model Y into the driveway in Orlando. The sequence of powering down the vehicle, opening the front to extract their luggage, and finally walking through their own front door.
It provides a specific type of closure that you simply do not experience after, say, a short commuter flight.
Navigating a massive swath of the continent under your own control, managing the vehicle's energy inputs, and calculating your own biological recovery times, it creates a deep grounding effect upon arrival.
Because you have not simply been transported, you have piloted a complex system through a volatile environment.
So the primary takeaway from this 1,000-mile log provides a clear directive for you, the listener. Whether you are deeply entrenched in the traditional gas station sprint methodology or you are already experimenting with electric vehicle routes, this data matters.
It really presents a compelling alternative to our standard travel behaviors.
Yeah, the EV mindset forces a behavioral constraint that ultimately serves the human operating system better than unrestricted speed.
The supercharger network provided the mechanical capability to cross the country, but the battery's charging curve provided the biological pacing.
It's a perfect pairing.
Matching our travel velocity to the thermal limits of a lithium-ion battery forces us to respect our own physiological limits.
It proves that slowing down is not a failure of efficiency.
Not at all. It's rather a more sustainable strategy for long-duration performance.
It transforms a grueling endurance test into a structured, manageable sequence. So to encapsulate this journey down the East Coast, it began with the deliberate cognitive offloading of packing the sub-trunk with a specialized toolkit.
Then it required abandoning the gas car sprint in favor of the battery-dictated EV mindset.
Exactly. It utilized the evolving landscape of experiential retail to turn 45-minute charging pauses into a brisket-fueled Buc-ees tour.
And it demanded a high level of mental resilience to survive the dopamine crash of the Florida fake-out before finally reaching home base in Orlando. Analyzing the hidden realities of this specific route leaves us with a broader question about how we design our systems.
Let's hear it.
If the mandatory, non-negotiable pauses imposed by an electric vehicle's battery architecture can actually rescue a driver's sanity, clear their cortisol, and drastically improve their physical condition upon arrival,
Right.
what other high-stress, optimization-obsessed areas of your life might dramatically improve if you were simply forced by the very mechanics of the system itself to slow down and take a break?
Wow. That is a powerful concept to consider.
Hmm.
Sometimes the friction we try to engineer out of our lives is exactly what we need to function properly.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us as we explored the logs of this 1,000-mile run. Keep questioning the defaults, look closer at the systems you rely on every day, and most importantly, keep digging into the details of the world around you.
Safe travels and keep exploring.
We will see you next time.